bring it to us, Joshua. I know you always are learning and implementing a lot. So
Sure.
I'm interested to hear your best thing.
Yeah. So I've heard you talk about this before, and John Carlton is the guy that I first heard it from. But John talks about being the adult in the room, and I know that again that's something that we've talked about quite a bit in the threads and Real Free Life and Escape Velocity and whatnot. And so, John has a degree in psychology, and I don't know if he is familiar with this or not, but in psychology there is a subset of study called transactional analysis. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
It was like a big thing in the 70s and like 70s and the 80s, and there's a whole bunch of books written about it. One book is called Games People Play. I know you're purging your library, but for somebody else, maybe that might be a book that they can look up. Games People Play, and it's amazing. Like you're definitely familiar with the concept of this.
Right.
If you look at it a little bit more, but it talks about these different power plays and these different, interactions that we have, and who's doing what, and the manipulation and the persuasion, and it's really good. There's lots of stuff on it. In fact, the entire Sandler sales training system is based off of transactional analysis.
Oh, interesting.
So it's all about human interactions. And so in transactional analysis, TA, there's this concept called the three states, the three egos, the three states of maturity. It's a child, a parent, and an adult. The thing is, Kevin, most people never progress from a child to an adult, let alone a parent. And so the difference between those three egos is that the child is emotional, impulsive, gravitates towards pleasure, is afraid, doesn't want to take responsibility. And the fact is, that's how most people live their lives. They're afraid. Jay Abraham says most people are silently looking to be led, begging to be led. They gravitate towards what's easy, what's enjoyable, what's pleasurable. The adult, though, is it's like the monkey brain versus the lizard brain. The adult is the logical, rational, tempered, calm. They're thinking about the consequences of their actions. They're thinking of the consequences of others. They're thinking about, second order things, third order things, and they can plan ahead. Whereas the child, they just want what's in front of them now. They want the immediate gratification. Right. And then the parent, not every adult is a parent, obviously, but some people that grow into becoming parents, either relationally speaking or biologically speaking, they can be critical or they can be caring. And so we see like the difference between a nurturing parent versus a critical parent. Like my parents were pretty critical. Like I've had to overcome issues of being a little not warm enough in relationships because I wasn't raised in an environment that was warm and caring and loving, and so this shapes people's personality and dynamics. But here's the thing, as copywriters, as freelancers, we have to remember that most people are living from their inner child. So they want things like what Darren is talking about. The clients want things now. They're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about your schedule. They're not thinking about your fees or these other things. They're thinking only about themselves. People are selfish, And so when John talks about being the adult in the room, I've been studying this and reading this, and I heard him say it on a podcast or something. I thought, oh my goodness, that's transactional analysis. That's the exact same thing. And so we can take that responsibility to become the adult in the situation and set our own standards. You just mentioned that about, Real Free Life and Escape Velocity. You have to set the bar for how people treat you.
That's right.
Your own boundaries. You have to set your own standards. And so I heard that recently. I took what John heard. I took what I was, learning in this book, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's a confluence there of, ideas. And there's been a couple of times here with prospects, one prospect in particular, where that scope creep began to come in, and I just had to have that conversation. And I didn't shrink back from it. You can't shrink back from these things. You can't, tuck tail and be submissive and say, oh, okay, whatever you say. No, you have to determine your interactions and what you're willing to accept and allow in that client relationship.
That's right. Exactly right. And lay down the terms so that are clear to follow. Because again, like that, not only, first of all, it's what you're telling yourself when you do that, when you take charge and you say, exactly, I'm worth this, level of sort of obedience from a client. It's a weird way to put it, but man, when just like as a parent, when you say, look, sometimes you don't want to have to discipline your kid or tell them no to things, but you know it's for the greater good, right?
Yeah.
And you see the bigger picture that they can't see, and it's very similar with clients. It's like they don't know how this works best, so you should manage the project, and you should give them deadlines for when you need things, and that's going to give them actually a lot of confidence, just like a child to a parent. I'm safer when mom or
Yes.
dad are around. They
Yeah.
feel safer when you're around because clearly you've got a way that this goes.
Yeah. But doesn't this apply to every relationship too, though? I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
thing with friends. You see it with your contacts, your networks, your spouse, you know, whoever it is. You can always say if you're feeling impulsive or irrational or your emotions are becoming elevated, just pause for a second and say, hey, am I acting from my adult or am I acting from my child within me? Or is this person, is my friend or my wife or my neighbor or my coworker or whoever, are they acting from the child within them or are they acting from the adult within them? And then you can respond accordingly. But the crazy thing is this applies to copy as well.
Yeah.
This applies to copy as well. So it's client management tips, it's tips for copywriting. And I saw in the chat, Ron is talking about how Dan Kennedy says that everybody's going around looking for a place to plug their umbilical cord into. You know, it's so true. People, and when you understand that people live in fear, the far majority of the population is afraid, consciously or unconsciously. They're afraid. They don't want to take responsibility.
Right.
They're looking for an easy button. They want hope. They want answers. And when
Yeah.
you can address those things in the copy and reassure them and alleviate those fears, you know, it's just, you know, people want to be led, man.
Yeah. People want to be led and they're lonely. And John talks a lot
lonely.
about that as well.
Yeah.
Man, great stuff, Joshua. Thank you for sharing that.